Hey everybody, this is Perch. There's been a lot of commentary and I think excitement about this idea that the major superheroes, major characters, going to enter the public domain. And a bunch of people have ideas like, "This is finally I'll get my hands on Batman. I'll write the Batman story I want to write." And I continue to say I don't think it's going to happen like people think. I just don't. I think that there's this idea that, well, I mean, first of all, there's this idea that you'll be able to just write your own Superman comic with the current costume and, supporting characters and everything else. You'll be able to write Superman fanfic basically, but you'll be able to, to charge for it, not get sued. But it really won't work that way. So, there are some contractual things that will happen. But it's not like, it's just not like, it's not like people think. Again, what happens is in their heads, they believe they're going to be able to write their own Elseworlds and not get sued. That's not what's going to happen. The issue is incredibly complicated. It will enter, the public domain. In fact, one of the things that they're wrestling with right now is that the 10-year plan that James Gunn and everything are putting in place. Basically, if Superman enters the public domain, 12 years from now or so, that's going to bump up against that. And people are saying, well, one of the reasons why Warner is hurrying with this is because there's a ticking clock on how much money they make. And that's making an assumption that suddenly all these other things are going to, flood the public domain and you'll no longer be able to make money out, but you will. So, what does this mean? Well, the biggest recent example is Mickey Mouse. Okay. So Mickey Mouse entered the public domain. But do you see a lot of so good thing to look at because the DC stuff enters the public domain in 36, 2036. Anyway, Mickey Mouse enters the public domain in 2024. And, there's a lot of people all excited about, I'm going to make my own Mickey Mouse stuff and all the rest. But, first of all, the public domain copyright has been extended already. That was the Mickey Mouse Protection Act in 98. That's not what it was actually called. But anyway, it extended things. But now Mickey will enter the public domain in 2024. So what happens? Well, a lot of it is wrapped up in a misunderstanding of copyright. So, where Disney draws the line on how they're enforcing their brands is going to be very, very aggressive. The only contract that's expiring is the original version of Mickey Mouse in Steamboat Willie, where he was drawn a very particular way, bigger eyes, kind of different shaped head. All of it is very different. He's non-speaking, kind of had a more rat face, and he was kind of, he was basically kind of a prick. The later version, the Mickey that everybody knows, the rounder Mickey, that is protected by copyrights for a long time to come. That is not entering anytime soon. So, the Fantasia, Mickey, Sorcerer Mickey, and all the rest, that's got a ways to go. And so people coming in are going to have a hard time restricting themselves to just the version of Mickey that is legal from the Steamboat Willie situation, and then kind of moving it from there. Recently, the Winnie the Pooh came into public domain. You're seeing people do comics and things based off that. But you'll notice that the stuff that they're doing is absolutely a different, it's a very, very, very different view of Mickey. So there's a movie out, Blood and Honey, where, Pooh turns feral, but the Pooh looks nothing like the Pooh Bear that that Disney popularized. It looks nothing like copyright that's being evaluated. So how much does it matter? I guess what the money that's going to be made there are people who are going to watch the Pooh movie and go, hey, this is really funny because it's making fun of an old copyright. But in terms of a franchise, it's going to be very hard to grow from there unless it grows completely separate. And arguably, you could have done that already, and people did. There were versions of kind of Winnie the Pooh sold as bootleg comics and everything else. They didn't get sued because they were different enough. Disney just didn't chase after them. So if you're going to create a very different version of the character, you arguably could do that now. You're on slightly better legal standing, but it really, not a lot has actually changed. So if Superman enters public domain in 34, Batman in 35, Wonder Woman in 37, these are key characters to DC. But remember, the Superman that is available is the Superman of 1938, not the Superman, not the Byrne version, not the 2022 version, not any of these other incarnations of Superman. It's 38. And if the creator does things to the character that kind of hint or nod at the future that is still under copyright, they get sued. And they will get sued aggressively. So, for example, Superman back in the 30s could leap tall buildings in a single bound. He could not fly. He was a lot more punchy, both literally and figuratively. If you do a Superman movie, you can vaguely use the kind of the old classic shield and everything else, but the audience is going to view that as a parody throwback. They're not going to view it as new IP. And if you want to do just some new kind of long-term branch of these characters, you'd have to make them so radically different that it's questionable why you would bother in the first place. Are you getting much off the brand anyway? Batman, if you're excited to write Batman in 2035, 2035, you're excited by that. Cool, but you are leveraging the old Batman, the original Batman. That's what you're using. And there are plenty of characters out there that are kind of Cape Crusader, kind of dark. I mean, we've seen a ton. So your ability to actually, you're competing with a bunch of stuff that already exists. Sure, you can call it Batman, but for example, if you made that character, let's say you hired Jim Lee to come in and draw it, you would have to walk an absolute legal tightrope to strictly adhere to that version of the character and not introduce any of the rest of the shit, the villains, none of it. And I question why you would want to do that. There's going to be a first mover advantage of people who do it to make that first buck, that first dollar, and that they're gonna make some money off of basically parody. Like, oh look, somebody made a Batman cartoon, but it's not Batman. That's how people will look at it. But in terms of a lasting franchise, I mean, people really get only one shot at it. What if Batman was different? There comes a point where it's just weird. And keep in mind the name Batman, the name Superman. Yeah, technically you'll be able to do something with it in the public domain, but DC is going to aggressively define and protect the popular version everyone knows. So you have an uphill battle on your hands. You're going to have to basically create your own version of it, still can call it Batman, have to be extremely careful that you don't accidentally introduce something into the comic that makes it feel even remotely like the current version, or you get sued. And again, I don't know why you'd want to do that. There's a lot less value. It sounds exciting. It sounds like, hey, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell the universe the way I would have told it. But, what people will expect is that you're going to bring in Commissioner Gordon and the Joker and the Rogues Gallery. You're going to do all these other things with Batman. You can't do any of that. None of that is available to you. All that stuff is still under copyright. And if you may think your idea is radically different from what DC has done, but, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably not. Think of all the different writers who have come in to write for Batman, Superman, etc. over the years. They've all taken very different takes on the character. And in many ways, all those different takes, all those Elseworld stories, the various kind of ways it's been done, all of that stuff is like, it's their armor. It's their protection because they have all these different versions. They've got a lot of different, they basically say, all of these things are covered because all of these things are copyright. So you would have to go outside of any version or incarnation of Batman that's been done before. And there's been a ton of it. That's what you're up against. So, how does it play out? I'm sure we'll get some entertaining stories out of it, but I don't have my hopes too high on it. I don't believe that, very much of it is going to help. Anyway, maybe you think differently. Again, it's fun to fantasize about. It's fun to speculate about what could happen, but I don't have a lot of confidence that good things do happen. So thanks for listening.